Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Monday, the 15th of Feb. All right, just having a look at the US equity futures. Having a pretty positive day, right? So, bit of a risk-on scenario. Now, one of the easiest ways to sort of check this out is if I just switch over to my currency strength. Risk up, should see all the dollar pairs down. Now, I've got all the majors here sort of reconfigured against the dollar. Everything except the yen, right, is going down. So we do have a risk-on profile. It means US dollar pairs fall and the dollar block, well, they just go up. And if I switch back to the other page, and you can see that clearly here as well. Once again, equity's up. Okay, you get the dollar block up and the dollar pairs down, with the yen being the odd one out. So we've got a bit of focus here. And if you have a look across the major pairs, if I just get these screens over, you have a look here. Like euro, well, you know, it's up, but it's struggling, right? Euro is struggling. Sterling heading topside. That little move there in the Aussie and the Kiwi. Now these are daily charts. So if I just switch back, it'll look a bit better on the hourly charts. If I get that across. All right, now let's just have a look where we are. You can see a little bit of the action here. Now, Euro's just banging away here around that resistance line, making a bit of hard work of it. Sterling, as we know, big rollout of vaccines, really a bit of sterling euphoria. Aussie's still hanging in there, as is the Kiwi after a bit of a flush out down at just under 72 the other day. The dollar pairs, well, they are going lower, and dollar CAD is back in the groove with oil, right? Oil back above 60 bucks. But now they're correlating extremely high. You want to be keeping a close eye on oil and dollar CAD. As I said, the dollar yen is blowing the trend on short-term trend on the dollar, which is, and dollar Swiss actually, dollar Swiss hasn't gone much actually. It's at 0.04% down, so barely coming down. Now, what does that tell us? Well, it just tells me, like, if you look at the trend lines here where everything is. Now, I would be adjusting some of these to the where we finished up last week. Okay, you get that move there in the dollar. Dollar Swiss is going down. If anything, you're starting to draw that new trend line here on dollar yen. And we've got some new action here on dollar CAD, right? And I was actually, that green line there on the dollar CAD chart was the previous resistance line on oil. Looks like a bit of a clean out as dollar dipped. I mean, oil dipped from 59 bucks back to sort of 57 and a half. Now it's kicked right back into gear. Now, what you need to do, especially Mondays, right? It's a good time, especially if you've had a bit of time over the weekends, get your charts tuned up. Now, you're looking for just basically where's support and resistance. You can just see here where euro resistance is coming right in here. That's probably why it's just stalling at the moment. Sterling, well, we're adjusting that trend line over here. It wants to do its own thing. It's cruising to the top side. Aussie and Kiwi now still making way through those resistance lines, and with a bit more support now. Actually, there's a bit of a triple top here, or top forming in Kiwi. Gives us something to work with. But so the basic trend at the moment is pretty much the same as last week, where we had the dollar heading down. It came back, tested, and now it's starting to drift lower again. We are lacking that key dollar push, and the market, and I can tell you, I'll show you the news in a second. It sort of really reminds me of the market that's not really sure what's going on. We're missing that key fundamental driver, and now they're sort of talking about there's question marks over the recovery from the pandemic, how long that's going to take. And that's just an open-ended question that everyone's going to be sort of wondering, not only just the markets, but it just seems to fit the bill. Where dollar CAD, I tell you what, look for pairs that make complete sense. Dollar CAD with oil going down, rallying, I should say, is pushing dollar CAD down. Dollar CAD has got to be on your radar because it makes a hell of a lot of sense with what's going on. It's got that connection with oil, gives us a real good push. Now, euro, we need a real massively weak dollar to get the euro higher. I just feel that you can see these highs over here. It's a bit of a cluster. The fundamentals in Europe are weak. So for euro to go up, we really need serious weakness in the dollar. Otherwise, I think it's just going to sort of start flapping around here. As I said, sterling, a lot of euphoria around the rollout of vaccines. From all the talk in the media, they seem to have worked things out and are really pushing for it. Whether they work or not, because there's new strains coming out all the time. Whether it's just a waste of time or not, we'll find out in due course. As I said, Aussie's sort of making a bit of tough work through these resistance lines. We're a bit of a top here in the Kiwi. But out of these, you can see what's happening, but we just don't have that real natural driver at the moment. And that's, I just love it when I know why the currencies are going up and down and where that direction's coming from, what instruments. At the moment, all I can tell you is it looks like we've got a risk on day as far as equity markets, US equity futures. They're telling me that to buy the dollar block, sell dollar pairs. And you can see that obviously clearly dollar yen isn't moving. And that's what I was saying, like dollar Swiss really isn't in the game either. It's hardly even budged. So there are a few pairs to focus on. When you're looking at the dollar block, it's a matter of like trying to find the one with the best technical setup. At the moment, well, the euro's right at the level and the others, they're dancing, but it's Monday. I just can't get myself really worked up on a Monday to really jump into a trade, especially as I was sort of saying, the news isn't exactly, or the information out there isn't exactly super cool. And what I mean by super cool is like telling me exactly what's going on. Is it employment numbers, CPI, these sorts of things? We've got, and there's very little news out when they start talking about Japan and economics, right? Japan extends economic recovery as exports, CapEx, shake off COVID hit. Mate, the Japanese economy has not really been functional for 30 years. So when they start talking about Japan, they're struggling for news. And the main news piece here is obviously Bitcoin. It's come back off its high. It's still around $47,000, which doesn't make sense. And that's where we are. So we're really sort of waiting to see. The smart thing to do at this point is really start isolating what's coming out this week and have a look through and think of the pairs that have been coming into play. Now, we'll get some good numbers out of Europe tomorrow. The ZEW or ZEW economic sentiment numbers, plus the Eurozone GDP. Now, that's a bit of a double whammy. We get really crap numbers there on both fronts. Euro should come in for a little bit of a belting. And at the same time, I still think the market's a bit short euro. If those numbers come in strong, well, we're going to have a potential trading opportunity, right? That's the main sort of focus of that part of the equation. Now, as you scroll through the week, the idea of looking down through the week is more to get you focused on where the action will be. Okay, what can you look forward to? What pairs will be in play, right? UK CPI numbers, maybe. I don't think it's too early for CPI numbers in the UK. It's all about vaccines at the moment, but keep an eye on those numbers. Once again, sterling's going up. So if we get really good CPI numbers, that supports a rallying sterling and will sort of naturally go up. If the CPI numbers are weak, well, the trend is up. It'll might come down a little bit, but it'll struggle. So look for things that go with the current movements. Okay, US retail sales figures coming out on the 18th, which will be the 17th in what day is that? Wednesday. Retail sales figures, Bank of Canada inflation numbers. Once again, really usual numbers that we would sort of gravitate towards. You got Thursday's Aussie employment numbers. Once again, another number that should move the market around. We're looking for clear direction on the Aussie to get into that as well. Once again, looking for these numbers to go with the current activity. And I got some Japanese numbers there at the end. UK retail sales. There's a bit of more UK sort of data as we go through the week, which is interesting. And Canadian retail sales figures there as well. So keep an eye on those. And we'll see how it all plays out. But that's all she wrote for the moment. So plenty to look for during the week. And as I said, like Mondays, the market reconnects, right, to where it was Friday after 2 days of, pandemic news over the weekend, which sort of usually flushes out a few things. What we can see at the moment is a risk on sort of profile as far as the equity markets are concerned, and it is impacting across the pairs. Some pairs aren't moving far, so just be wary of that. So the safe haven trade isn't on, right? Otherwise, dollar yen would be going down. So there's no situation there. One other thing that you can look at, keep an eye on, right, is the VIX, the volatility index. Now, I'm glad I remembered to look at this. See how it's falling? This tells you that the market is very comfortable with the current news that's coming out. There's no hysteria. There's no wild volatility. In fact, volatility is coming off. So what that means is the safe haven trade definitely not on, and we're coming back to potentially normal market conditions. So that tells me we may be in for a week where the economic numbers come into play. If they are, just be wary of going for that systematic risk on, risk off day, because the equity markets will follow the data, not be the driver themselves, right? And if the economic numbers aren't working, well, we'll come back and look at the the equity markets for direction. And that's what we've got at the moment. So the smart thing, as I said, Mondays, just get your charts up, get your trend lines tuned up, find out where all the levels are so you can see which pairs, if they are going up, where the critical levels on the top side are. There may not be any. And you can sort of really isolate the entry level and the direction of the pairs. As I said, dollar CAD's been in the spotlight for me the last couple of weeks. I'll be watching that closely, as is euro. And then from here, I'll be looking at the key economic data releases to see if they impact across the board. Sterling's got a few out. Aussie, Eurozone, plenty to play for. All right, guys, have a good one. All the very best for this week. Cheerio.